समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
Is there anything I can tell you, anything new I can tell you about the just concluded Anderson Tendulkar Trophy series in England? It ended 2-2. All of you know. All of you know almost everything else. Most of you know more than me, and I think many of you are experts because we are a country of 1.4 billion, 140 crore. I'm just leaving out a few infants, maybe 140 crore cricket coaches. So what is it that I can tell you? What nugget can I pull out? Where is the clutter? Now, the clutter is in believing the many things that we believed as this series has gone on. We've thought, for example, at various points of time that, oh, our bowling is so poor. The English are really hammering us. Then we've also seen moments when we say, our team, why do they suffer these collapses? 6 wickets gone in 37 runs, stuff like that. This happened in the first test match and afterwards also. We have to look at the data a little bit deeper to understand from where has this remarkable result come and how remarkable this series has been. So I will give you some data towards the conclusion, but let me focus most of all or almost entirely on fast bowling, mainly Indian fast bowling, because that is what matters to us. Those days when India went overseas and you only talked about the opposition's fast bowlers, Lily, Thompson, Marshall, Roberts, Garner, Ambrose, Stuart Broad, Anderson, Matthew Hogarth before that, we mostly came back wounded by the opposition fast bowlers. Dale Steyn, Alan Donald, Rabada, like that. Now we have fast bowlers that we can talk about. Once again, in this series, Indian fast bowling was seen to be not good enough, simply because only Bumrah was seen as a kind of a match winner among our fast bowlers, and he's been having challenges with fitness, and his physio had said that he cannot play more than 3 test matches out of 5. That was a given. That's how it played out. However, see how this series worked out, and who is it that restored the honors in this remarkable series where nobody gave India such a lot of chance. In fact, if you see all the commentators, all the experts, almost all of them gave the series before it started to England from 4-0 by David Lloyd to 3-1 by many others. For this to end 2-2 is quite a remarkable result. And who better to describe what happened today than Brendan Baz McCullum, in whose name Bazball is played by English team. He said after the last test ended that we were in good shape, we thought we had a good chance of winning, but Indian boys' passion was too strong, so they deserved to win. And then he says something which I think underlines the real story of this series. He says, think of Siraj playing his 5th test match on the trot, 5th test match, 30 overs bowled. In his 30th over, cranks up 90 miles per hour, 5 wickets haul, gets the job done. Fair play, right? That's the compliment from the English coach. That is the reason I say that this one line underlines the spirit of this series is that this series has been drawn or has been evened out as much by Indian batters as by Indian fast bowlers. Indian batters almost always get credit. Fast bowlers rarely do, particularly when your spearhead is not available for all 5 test matches. So just look at the basic figures, the larger figures. In this 5 test series, where every test went into the 5th day, barring the last one, every test also went into the last session of the 5th day. So this has been a very long series, played over 25 competitive days. In this series, A total of 174 wickets have fallen between the two teams, 174. Of these 174 wickets, 2 are run-outs, both unfortunately Indian. So let's leave those 2 out. The rest have fallen to bowlers. Out of this, 27 have gone to spinners. Just for the record, I will tell you, Shoaib Bashir 10, Jadeja 7, Washington Sundar 7, Root 2, Dawson 1. But that is not what we are talking about. We are talking about the rest. Of the 172, 27 have gone to spinners, 145. 145. 145 have gone to fast bowlers. Now, normally you would have thought that in a long series like this, where bulk of the wickets have gone to fast bowlers, India would not do so well. But see what's happened in this series. Of the 145, English pacers have got 75 wickets. 75. But look at the Indians, 70 wickets. That's quite a remarkable performance. And remember, there is one basic distinction between the attack that the English put out and the Indian side put out. On the Indian side, even when 4 seamers were playing, the 4th seamer was either Shardul Thakur or Nitish Reddy. They were really part-time dibbly-dobbly seamers. For England, the 4th seamer was Ben Stokes, no less, in at least 4 of these test matches. That's the reason we say that this series marks the rise of the Indian pace. Indian pace with some experience, some new people. Very often we've seen our pacers being hit and we've said, oh, why does so-and-so bowl like this? Why did we bring so-and-so? Why didn't we bring so-and-so? I also said at one point, if they are bowling so expensively, why not bowl spinners a little bit more? Everybody gets frustrated. I am also a fan. I also get frustrated. But if you look at the larger data, you can see this was a series of batters. This was a series of batters on mostly flat pitches where they scored a lot of runs. I will come to that. They scored a lot of runs, and yet matches went into the last session of the last day. So bowlers also got a chance of getting the wickets. In that shootout between bowlers, particularly fast bowlers on both sides, the Indian group was as good as the English group, and that is the reason we've got this result. And you saw that spirit in the way both Siraj and Prasidh Krishna bowled this morning. Now let me give you some basic analysis of Indian pacers. Indian pacers had 5 fifers between them. Bumrah had 2 out in the 3 test matches he played. Bumrah had 2, Siraj had 2, and Akash Deep had 1. That is 5 fifers. For England, it was only 3 fifers. That is Josh Tongue, Gus Atkinson, and Stokes. Even 4 wicket hauls. India had 4, Siraj had 1, Akash Deep had 1, Prasidh Krishna had 2. For England, there was 1 4-wicket haul by Tongue. England and India both fielded 7 pacers in this series. But remember, when we count India's 7 pacers, we also count for the first 4 test matches, we also count Nitish Kumar Reddy and Shardul Thakur as pacers. In England's case, that 4th pacer would be Ben Stokes. That is the difference between the 2 pace attacks, and yet Indian pace group did as well as the English pace group. Look at some more data now specifically on Indian pacers. Bumrah, 3 tests, 119.4 overs, 14 wickets for 364 runs, average of 26, strike rate of 51.28. That is strike rate means you get a wicket approximately every 51 balls. See Mohammad Siraj, he's bowled the most overs for any bowler in this series. In fact, probably if Vokes had not got injured and had bowled in the second innings, probably he would have bowled more overs. But he was mostly used as a stock bowler in this series, and I will give you data on that. Siraj played all 5 matches. In fact, the only pacer to complete all 5 matches. Vokes was fielded. He came out to play in the 5th test, but he got injured. So Siraj is the only pacer to complete all 5 test matches. 185.3 overs, that is 1,113 balls, conceding 746 runs, 23 wickets at 32.43 average, strike rate of 48.39. If anything, a wee bit better than Bumrah's. But they will be a surprise also, so stay with me. Now you look at Akash Deep. Akash Deep, 3 tests, 109 overs, about as many overs as Bumrah, 109 overs, 474 runs, so a bit more expensive, in fact, more than a bit more expensive. 13 wickets at an average of 36.46, strike rate 50.38, about the same as Bumrah. And then Prasidh Krishna, the bowler everybody thought was always giving boundary balls, and he was giving boundary balls all the time. This morning also he started with a boundary ball, a rank long hop. He's got that weakness that he has to work on and his coach has to work on. Yet look at his figures. 3 tests he played, 105 overs, about as many overs as Bumrah or Akash Deep, 105 overs, 519 runs conceded, so a lot of runs conceded. In fact, his economy rate of 4.94 per over, that's almost 5 per over, is the highest for any Indian bowler. I suspect it might be highest for any fast bowler in this series from either side. Yet, he took 14 wickets. So, he's a wicket-taking bowler. 14 wickets, average of 37.07, and strike rate, interestingly, 45. So, among the Indian fast bowlers, in fact, Prasidh Krishna has the best strike rate of 45. So 45 Prasidh Krishna, 48.39 Siraj, 50.38 Akash Deep, and 51.28 Jasprit Bumrah. I told you about the workload, and I said Siraj bowled 185.3 overs, and Vokes probably would have bowled more than him if he had lasted out the full 5th test match. He's bowled 181 overs. But look at his figures. He's conceded 574 runs in those 181 overs, taken 11 wickets, has a good economy rate, great economy rate of 3.17, but a strike rate of 98.72. What does it mean? What this means is what I just said to you 3 minutes earlier, that he was used more as a stock bowler. That is to give your strike bowlers a rest, or that is to keep scoring under control, which means if the batters really want to get runs, they have to take risks. He did not perform the role of a strike bowler in this series with just 11 wickets in the entire series, minus the one innings where he could not bowl. Look at the other English pacers. Josh Tongue played 3 test matches, strike rate of 40. So I would say the best strike rate among English pacers is his. Of course, Atkinson is a bit better at 36.5, but he only played 1 test match. You have to keep that in the mind. Bryden Carr's 103.33. So England maybe dropped him for that reason. He scored some runs at the tail end, but 103.33. And Vokes, I just told you, 98.72. And Overton, who played 1 test match, 114, 114. Even Jofra Archer, who played 2 tests, 59 strike rate. So none of the English pacers, barring Josh Tongue, really had a significantly better strike rate. That tells you that apple for apple or pacer for pacer, this Indian team has been as good as the English team, if not a little bit better. Now, it might look a little counterintuitive that we are holding forth so much about bowling and particularly fast bowling in a series where so many runs have been scored. So let me give you some startling data on the runs scored in this series. This is quite a remarkable series, and yet 4 of the 5 test matches were decided. Even the 5th was drawn with the defending side fighting till the last hour. These stats I borrow from Andy Zaltzman. Thank you very much, Andy Zaltzman, who's a comedian, talk show host, and also the statistician for BBC Test Match Special. And what are the things that he's telling us? Remarkable things, and I will add a little bit more masala to this. First of all, he said this series saw 7,187 runs scored, which is the second highest in any series ever and most in a 5-test series. Now, what does that mean? Most of you who are below 50 years of age may not remember that in the past, there often used to be 6-test series, right? So this is for a 5-test series. Now, I think anybody who's younger than 50 has not seen a 6-test series. 6-test series have been held in India as well. So this is the second highest 7187 in any series ever, and the most in a 5-test series. So you can say it was a battered series. Of this, 3,807 were scored by India, which is the second highest total ever and highest in a 5-test series. Of the total runs scored, therefore, India scored 53% of the runs and England scored 47. So the result is 2-2, but India scored more runs than England did. 21 centuries scored in this series. Zoltzman says ties with the most in any test series. 50 plus scores also equals the most ever in a full series. India scored 12 of these 21 centuries. India scored 12. That includes obviously Gill's big double 100. India scored 12 of the 21. This is tied for all-time lead in a series for the number of centuries scored by one side. India had 3 players, Zoltzman says, with 500 runs or more. Only 5 other teams in the history of Test cricket have ever done that. 3 of the 5 tests. Now you might think that, oh, batters were really having a great time, so this was one of those boring series. It wasn't a boring series. It wasn't a boring series with flatbed wickets or with pata wickets, as we call them in Maidan language in India, where everybody can keep batting and batting. The kind of wickets that Babar Azam gets his hundreds and hundreds and hundreds on, or the kind of wickets which at one point Sri Lanka used to make. I think in one test, Sri Lanka got to 900 something against India, completely pointlessly, because nothing would happen to that wicket. These were not wickets like that, because again we have it from Zoltzman. In 3 of the 5 tests, first inning gaps was under 30 runs. Only 4 test series ever have had 3 test matches with a first innings gap of 30. And he says, you want to know how rare that is? Only 4 test series ever, and one was the 2023 Ashes. I will add to that in this close series, we also had a dead heat. We had a dead heat at Lord's where England and India both scored identical score in the first innings of 387. This is how close it was. Then Zoltzman says, 17 players on honours boards for centuries or 5 fours. That's an all-time record. 29 hundreds plus 5-4. That means 21 hundreds and 8 5-4 bowling performances. That is 29. This is an all-time record for Test series. So it's not just the batters who are prospering, it's also the bowlers who are prospering. And in this case, it's the fast bowlers who are prospering. And yet, with so many runs scored, you've had 4 results and 1 near result. And finally, a point that Zoltzman makes, from which I will draw a cricketing point. He says that when Siraj bowled Gus Atkinson, this was the 45th time a player was bowled out in this series. This is the most in any test series anywhere since 1984, the most in a series in England since 1976. What is it telling you? Let's dice this data a little bit better. Of the 172 wickets taken by bowlers, 45 were bowled and 6 LBW. That means 30% of all wickets have fallen to bowled or LBW. This tells you, one, that there wasn't too much bounce on the wicket. Second, that there wasn't that much swing, so the ball was not carrying to slips. These were very different kind of England wickets, and England has been making these wickets ever since they took to baseball. Their idea has been that we have these bully batters who will come and put up humongous scores that the other side will struggle to equal, and even if they do, will be able to chase any target that the other side sets up. In fact, at Birmingham, when India batted on to take the target beyond 600 for England, it was said in criticism that India were afraid of England, that they will chase anything. They could chase anything. And they did indeed chase a big score on the last day, 371 at Headingley. In this case, however, they failed to get the 374. And if that happened, credit goes to Indian bowlers. And in this case, once again, Indian fast bowlers. That's the point I'm trying to underline.